Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, and we got Spencer Forsythe on the board. It's SEC time. It's SEC Media Days. We've been down there. I'm still down here.
Brandon's flexing on us.
Jesse and I were.
I was talking about what's in the backdrop there. You're flexing on us with the views from the hotel room.
Oh no, and my light went out. Oh, there it went. I don't know what's going on here, but very nice. I'm gonna turn that light on. I don't know
on
what's
again,
going on.
off again.
Yeah. Go ahead and introduce. I'm gonna fix this while we're doing
Yes, while you're dealing
I
with
don't know what's going on
that end. Let's make sure we have our bills paid for the evening. This episode of OU Insider Live, folks, is brought to you by Babbel. Now, the best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards for you this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. 1 in 5 Americans have learned a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Now, if you're like me, you probably took a few years of a foreign language in middle school or high school, and you've forgotten everything or most everything. I know this is the case with me in Spanish, but Babbel makes it so easy to learn actual conversational skills in your language, not just vocabulary, but tools and skills that you will need to communicate effectively in another language. And we've got a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, you can get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/OU Insider. 60% off at babbel.com/OU Insider, spelled BABBEL.com/OU Insider. Rules and restrictions may apply. And folks, as we get rolling on this Wednesday evening, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about, including a lot of pertinent recent news on the recruiting trail. Want to remind you all that if you have a question for us, you got a topic you'd like for us to discuss, the easiest way to make sure that we answer your question on this live stream is to drop a super chat. It can be any amount. Some people drop $1, some people drop $50. Whatever you contribute, we make it a point. Every single super chat question that gets asked over the course of this live stream, we will answer. We will not shut off the stream until we have answered every single super chat question. If you're not inclined to drop a super chat, just feel free to ask a question in the chat the old-fashioned way. We can't make any guarantees because we do get a lot of questions over the course of the stream. But if you want to make sure that you get your question answered or that we address your desired topic, drop a super chat and we'll make it happen. Brandon, did you get the lighting situation figured out there?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That was really weird. But yeah, technical difficulties notwithstanding. Let's talk SEC media days, Parker. I think the weird part is you and I walked away with different takes than everybody else in the media, and I think that has to do with the fact that we cover recruiting as well. And I think you know where I'm going here. Like a lot of people, and from everything that I've watched, and it's not to say that their opinion wasn't good, because I get where they're coming from, because it is a magnifying, like he's on a stage that we haven't seen Jackson Arnold, right? We haven't seen him do that before. We haven't seen him in front of that many cameras before, as far as media day goes. And so this was a big stage for him, being, the new starter. But that was everybody's takeaway, was that he handled it well, when we knew going into this that that's exactly who he was and how he was going to handle it, because we've been around him for the last 3 years.
Pro's pro.
He's a pro behind the mic. Like, that's just what he is. So I guess give everybody your take on what was the biggest takeaway for you from OU's version of the SEC Media Day.
I think media day, and I try to avoid falling into the trap of feeling better about OU after media day than I did before media day, because that's the easiest trap to fall into. You hear the coach, you hear the players say good things about the team, and you're tempted to scratch your head and ask the question, am I underestimating or undervaluing this team going into the season ahead? And in general, you're going to hear every single coach, you're going to hear every single player say good things about their team. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt, at least until the pads come on. But I will say this. Um, I think media day was exactly what it needed to be for Oklahoma. I think uh, Brent Venables and his players got the opportunity to address all of the major questions surrounding their program, be it, is OU SEC ready, or how good is that wide receiver room in actuality? We got the chance, certainly, to get some injury updates from Brent Venables, which is great and very necessary. The fans certainly want to know how things are going as guys like Andrell Anthony and Jalil Farouk and Troy Everett rehab. And now you have an answer on that front. But what you didn't want to do was paint a target on your back. And the easiest way to do that at your inaugural SEC Media Days was to say something that could be categorized as arrogant, or uh, something that diminished the magnitude of the SEC and the highly competitive nature of the SEC. And OU did not have anyone do such a thing at media days. There was some friendly shade thrown from Billy Bowman at Texas over the whole horns down thing, but you expect that, right? OU Texas is a bitter rivalry with a lot of vitriol. We know the dynamic between those two schools, so there's always going to be a little fun had there. But I think the fact that OU did not go out there, the Sooners four representatives did not go out there and put up any bulletin board material 2 weeks into their venture as an SEC program. Uh, I think that's the most you could have hoped for coming out of SEC Media Day. And Jackson Arnold in particular, again, it was the expectation that we had for him, but being only a sophomore, uh, being 19, 20 years old, it's all too easy to get that bait dangled in front of you and snap at it and give a reporter, give the national media exactly what they're looking for in terms of that bulletin board material. And it didn't happen for Arnold or anybody else.
Yeah. Okay. First off, I'm going to tell everybody that in the comments that are talking about how I looked. Look, I have been at the beach, but I'm not burnt. I don't know what is going on with the lighting here. I look like I've been laying in a tanning bed forever. I haven't been outside in a couple of days. So this is weird. I'm a lot darker, but like this is crazy. Like I was griping about it before we got on the live. Like the lighting sucks. So I
There are worse
apologize
things
if
than
I'm
looking like you've
blinding.
gotten some sun.
I look like I'm a strawberry right now, and I definitely don't look like that in person. So this is just like the lighting is like all jacked up for me right now. I I'm with you. I again, like I said, I don't think Jackson Arnold. I don't think it was shocking that Jackson Arnold was really good and handled it well, and the moment wasn't too big for him. I think people need to understand that we're talking about a player that literally literally played in how many? I think two 6A1 state titles from the time, or three. Was it three? I think it was played in three, and he lost. He was 0 for 3 in them, and I think he lost in the semifinals as a senior. Right?
Oh,
Is
Jackson
that
Arnold
correct?
can't win the big one.
Yeah. Well, anyways, um, my point is that as a freshman, he talked about it. He talked about it at on media days how he went in. It's like, man, I don't even think I threw for 20 yards. It was awful. I got just kind of thrown in there because Eli Stowers got hurt, and so he was kind of thrown into one of the biggest moments ever as a freshman in high school on the biggest stage in all of Texas high school football. And it was a great learning moment for him. And I think he has used that performance to kind of jumpstart everything that he is as far as maturity, as far as work ethic, as far as leadership, as far as just his overall abilities. Everything He does. He pinpoints back to that, and I think I'll never forget this. And I think this you got to credit Todd, his dad, Todd Arnold, and obviously his mother for the way he's turned out. And I was talking to his father. I want to say it was right before, it was between one of the practices at the Under Armour All American game a couple of years ago, and his dad randomly brought up that moment, and he said we hopped in the car because he didn't want to ride the bus home, and he goes, that was one of the moments where like it was, he knew if he wasn't going to let him be around his teammates after that, that it had to be a lesson, and so he essentially said when they sat in the car, he goes, look, he goes, you look at me and you look at me right now, Jackson. You're not going to let this moment define you. It is not going to define you, good or bad. You can use it as fuel. You can use it to learn from, but it is not going to define you. It is not going to be what everybody remembers about you the rest of your life. And I think that moment in itself has been what has propelled him to be what he is today, and the fact that he doesn't let any moment be too big for him. So that wasn't shocking. And I think the other thing was Danny Stutzman. You brought up Billy Bowman. I was around Danny Stutzman quite a bit yesterday, and outside of the awesome quote that he gave for OU Texas, which was just amazing. I pat myself on the back for that question. He really spoke up about the culture that has changed. And it wasn't meaning to be shade at Riley and that former staff at all, but it came off a little bit like that. Like, look, this program is way better off. Like, he was just glowingly speaking up what Venables has done for the program and for him as a person, as a player, as a leader, everything, culture, culture, culture. That's all he wanted to talk about. And then we talked about on the podcast. I think what he said about Ethan Downs might have been one of the best things. And it was, that guy might be the most selfless human being he's ever been around, and that he wants to be more like Ethan Downs. He wants to be more of a well-rounded human like Ethan Downs, because he said Ethan doesn't talk. Ethan's not going to get in your face. He's not going to scream at you. He's going to lead by example. He may get on to you a little bit, but he's not going to berate you or be this character. He's just going to be himself. And he said what strikes him the most about just the culture is that Ethan Downs epitomizes it more than anybody else on that team, because he's out there with the young guys 30 minutes before practice just to teach them, just so they can learn the scheme, the techniques, everything. And I thought that, to me, was some of the more telling, I guess, quotes that we got from the players. The best quote was when Venables said, "We're not intimidated from anybody. We're running towards the SEC." I think that was the quote that everybody took away as the best quote, Parker. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. There were some good ones. There were some good ones between the four. I guess, was there one that really overwhelmingly made the most, or I guess the biggest dent on social media? I don't know that there was. Which again, I think that's a good thing. I think if you're commanding the headlines coming out of SEC media days in year one as a member of the conference, that's probably not a great thing. So, really, really impressed with the way that Arnold and Stutzman and Bowman all handled themselves. You know what you're going to get with Beefy, and we talked about it on the podcast. But Danny's just come such a long way, and I'm so excited to see what he does this fall when the Sooners hit the field, because I truly do think he has a chance to have a special season and really leave his mark in Sooner lore.
Yeah. Yeah. Clemma 14. Thank you so much for the I guess super chat. Didn't say anything, but I really appreciate it. $5. What somebody, Christy H asked a question, and it wasn't a super chat, but I think it's something that people ask all the time. Is Jackson Arnold an only child? I believe he is, but I don't know why people ask that all the time. Um, Parker, what did you take away from other, I guess, teams that you saw this past week at SEC Media Day? Was there anything
Well, I
that you
mean,
walked away and was just like,
Eli Drinkwitz is quite a unique character, isn't he? With the STIs comments. That was I tell you,
yeah,
we we got rid of Tom Herman, and Steve Sarkisian is just leaps and bounds better than Tom Herman when it comes to a lot of things, not the least of which is handling himself with the media. But that felt like a very Tom Herman type of comment.
yeah. I mean, Tom Herman had some bangers, man. He was he was a different breed of cat. I'll say that in the words of Dean Blevins. Um, what? At least he didn't call it STD, right? I mean, STI, that's one thing. STD is another thing. What was somebody said that? What was the acronym that they gave for D on that? Do you remember? Instead of what he gave for STI, they put D at the end, and then
Yeah,
they
no,
gave an acronym
I don't
for it. Was
recall.
it?
That was
It
arguably the
was
most
funny though.
bizarre moment of SEC Media Days. I
Well, I
guess we
mean, like,
had day one, we had the chance for some fun headlines when Harold Perkins revealed that he didn't know who Danny Stutzman was, but that was more just honest
that's
ignorance
a
on
Harold
Harold
Perkins being.
Perkins. Yeah.
I have talked to Harold Perkins 1,000 times when OU was recruiting him. I went down and watched him play Connor Wegman when Connor Wegman was down at one point. It was A&M in Oklahoma, and a lot of people thought he was leaning Oklahoma at the time. And I remember asking him a question about Oklahoma and a couple of other, even LSU. And at the time, people were like, yeah, LSU's starting to creep up. He couldn't tell me who the linebacker coaches were for OU or LSU, dude. He couldn't. That is how oblivious. He said, I talked to him yesterday, but I can't remember their names.
Oh
That
man.
is Harold Perkins
It's a
to a
football
T.
guy right there.
That's he is. He is. I'm gonna let you read Virgil's because that's your guy.
Yes, Virgil threw us $25. Appreciate you, Virgil. He said Brandon Drumm got that melanin popping or burning. Parker Thune, my guy. Drum and Thune,
I
the
don't.
dynamic duo. It's always great to listen to you, man. Virgil, man, we appreciate you. One of the
We
more
appreciate you,
consistent
Virgil.
contributors via the super chat and a tremendous person in real life. Virgil is one of the members on
Mhm.
our board that I have gotten the chance to interact with in person on many an occasion. And he is the salt of the earth. We appreciate you, Virgil.
Yes, sir. I guess let's talk some team stuff.
Okay, let's
Um,
do it.
I know we've heard standouts, right? I think this is
Yeah.
I guess first let's talk about I think one of the bigger things that BV discussed and brought it up himself during the SEC Media Day. I guess it was with the local media, right? We sent Jesse in there to do that scrum where only I guess there was a handful of media people that got to go in there and do that. And we sent Jesse in there for it. And I think everybody walked away talking about what he said about PJ Adebawara and or Adebawara. I'm not. Oh, I said it right. Adebawara.
Adi Bawara.
I'm not gonna do it, dude. Just rock with me. I'm gonna butcher that name until he leaves. So Adebawara. um. Anyways, 261, 262, something to that extent. That's to me, that's big because that dude was weighing like 242 this spring. That's huge.
If PJ is indeed north of 260 and he can keep it on, like if he can keep that weight on, ooh boy, that's gonna be terrifying. for SEC offensive tackles because that dude was enough of a problem when he was 225 pounds in high school coming off the edge. At 260, he may be a force, and he may be a force very quickly here. Now, granted, he
Yeah,
probably
that
doesn't
guy.
open the
I'm
season.
telling
He
that
probably
guy's.
doesn't open the season as a starter. Ethan Downs, Caden Woolard, R. Mason Thomas, those are kind of the three guys that you would expect to see more of, at least to start. But there's no question, right? If we were just talking about sheer physical gifts and pure ceiling, there's nobody in that group, nobody in that room that touches PJ.
Right. Yeah. I doubt he keeps obviously through fall camp. I doubt he stays 262, 261. So whatever it is, right? I doubt he does that because you're going to lose weight through fall camp. You're going to sweat out a crap ton of water weight. And I know they do a really good job of weighing before and after and trying to make sure that they take enough fluids in that they can really not lose a lot of weight. But that's in the Oklahoma heat, that's almost impossible. I mean, that's why everybody loses weight in the summer, right? Everybody looks slimmer in the summer because naturally, one, you're outside, but two, you're losing a lot of water weight a lot in the heat. So, um, but if he can stay around 255, right? Like, would that not be a great weight for him this year as a sophomore and then work himself up to be around 265, 270 going into his junior year? And that's where I think we're going to see him take off at that weight.
You know, just like the way his frame is, 270 on PJ isn't going to look like 270. It'll look like 250, but it'll just make him all that much more powerful. And he's already got a ton of power. And that was the one thing I know you remember watching him at the Under Armour All-American game back in January of 23. And at the time, he's got a lot of natural strength and natural power, despite the fact that at the time he was still somewhat wiry. I mean, he took several 300-pound offensive tackles and just walked them back, man, because he's
Yeah.
built like a Greek god. And once he gets his body up to the point where he is in that 260 to 270 range consistently, and he's not sweating off some of that weight, and he can comfortably sit in that range with the dexterity that he has, the length that he has, man, that the ceiling is so, so high for him at Oklahoma. And I would expect that by the time he is a senior, he will probably be the best defensive player on Oklahoma's roster.
Yeah. My internet is very unstable right now, so I don't know why it's doing this, but it is what it is. I didn't hear. What'd you say at the senior part?
No, I said my expectation would be that by the time he's a senior, he's probably the best defensive player on Oklahoma's roster, assuming that he
Oh,
continues to.
I would hope so. If not, then dadgum, bro. We got problems.
I thought
Like
you're like a
he's
VIP down at the Kimpton. Did they not set you up with the elite Wi-Fi
I don't know
package?
what I don't know what this is going on. We've been here for how many days and I've never had any issues with the Wi-Fi until just now. It's crazy. I sat in this exact same spot last night. I was facing a different direction when we did the podcast and we were on a Zoom when we did it and I don't know. It's
We
crazy.
tried hanging upside down off the bed. Maybe that'll help. Just do the stream upside down.
The beds are so low. I would just I don't even know how that would even be possible, but
we got another
go ahead.
$5 super chat from Cameron Weaver. There is no question attached, but we appreciate the super chat. It is Cameron's first contribution in the history of this stream. Love that. Thanks, Cameron. If you have a question, follow up. We'll still answer it. But
Yeah.
if you just wanted to throw us a $5, hey, I'm cool with that too.
Yep. What if I said right now that Oklahoma's defense would be top 30 at the end of the season. Is that a hot take?
No,
And
that's not a
why?
hot take.
Why
No,
or why not?
absolutely
Why
not a
or
hot
why
take.
not?
It's not a hot take because the Sooners bring back 9 of 11 starters defensively. They added Dominic Williams. You're gonna, I mean, guys like Peyton Bowen and PJ that played sparingly a year ago, but have just an immensely high ceiling, and
Mhm.
everybody knows it. They're going to be a year older, a year wiser, a year more developed. I think Oklahoma is going to be a very good defensive team in 2024. Now,
I agree.
I the question becomes how much is that reflected in the statistics? Because it's a different ball game in the SEC. You're going to be challenged more, especially in the line of scrimmage aspect of the game. So I'm not necessarily going to come out and say I think Oklahoma is a top 10 defense in the country. I think if they were playing a Big 12 schedule, I might be willing to throw that take out there. But top 30 in the SEC, yeah, I think that's feasible. And I think
Yeah.
that should be an easily attainable goal for Oklahoma. I think if they don't finish in the top 30, there will probably be some justified questions at the end of the season about what went wrong, assuming it wasn't the injury bug biting at several places across the board.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see a player that everybody talks about that when I say everybody, I'm talking about inside the program has been talking about and just having some high praise for what he has become over the last year and a half, 2 years. This will be year two for him, obviously at Oklahoma. That's Taylor Wein at defensive end. And there seems to be some expectations for him that he is going to evolve into somebody that is really, really good and is evolving into a really good player, according to sources.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. He is listed
Okay.
at 264 pounds in the latest edition. Well, I guess it's not
Yeah,
the fall roster, it's the summer roster right now. Does he stick at defensive end
correct.
long term?
I think you and I had that conversation yesterday in the media day, whenever we were discussing his weight. I don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. That's a question that will obviously be answered, I think, this time next year, because if he really does grow into a 280-pound edge DN, I will say that Venables and Bates have used ends that are that large, obviously at Clemson. I don't know if he's as twitchy as players I'm talking about, and that's going to be the question. Can he remain that guy off the edge? It's almost like, right, David Stone. He's a guy that can do both, right? Jalen Redmond can do both. That's what you kind of wonder if Taylor Wine doesn't grow into that hybrid guy that can slide inside and outside wherever you need him. If you're ready to go for like a NASCAR pass rush on a third and long, scenario, and you throw him inside, right? And you have him next to David Stone, and then you have R. Mason Thomas and PJ as your outside guys, and you just say, pin your ears back, boys, and go get the quarterback. Yeah, I could see that being the case, but I don't know that if he throws that weight on, I don't know if he's gonna. I don't because I don't know his ceiling as far as twitchiness goes, and that's kind of the deal. Like with PJ, like he could weigh 290. That guy's gonna play defensive end because he's freaking twitchy as crap. I don't know that with Taylor Wine. I just don't. That that's a great question and something I think everybody kind of needs to pencil in. Where does Taylor Wine end up at by the time he leaves Norman, as far as weight goes and position? That's an interesting question. Another guy, Nigel Smith, right? Does he end up sticking at edge, DN? You and I both think he slides inside eventually. but
I actually don't. I think he probably just becomes
what what is he weighing right now?
I think
Do you
he's like
remember his weight?
I think he's right around
Like
260.
260?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
what I thought.
I,
He
you
looks it.
know, I think he probably just becomes like a long term, a 275-pound rock solid defensive end. That's what I think he will be and should be in Oklahoma's scheme. I mean, hey, EA Sports College Football thinks Danny Okoye is an outside linebacker. So maybe there's
And they
some
had him
positional versatility
68
there.
overall. What the hell was that?
65, Brandon.
60, one of the top 150 players in the country, and you're going to have him as a 65 overall coming out of high school? What is that? That doesn't even make any sense. And he was a guy that everybody had glowing remarks about all through spring as somebody to watch this fall. And that that didn't make sense. I want to give it up to EA Sports because with all the transfers and all the late transfers as they're trying to get that game out and the roster just jumblification that it is, they did a really good job. Like I can't remember who I was playing last night, and it was somebody that picked up somebody really late in the process, and that person made a play, and I was like, "Whoa, that dude just got there like 3 weeks ago, and he's on the game." So you got to give it up to him for that. But they don't have PJ, so that also is. I'm taking back my giving it up for them because they
Hey,
don't have Adebo.
are we going to talk about Floyd
Go ahead.
Boucard? I feel like that's something we should probably get around to.
Yeah, I was trying to get halfway through the live before we brought that up, just because I didn't want to have crickets afterwards. But we can talk about him and we can talk about Fasusi because I had a conversation with some Texas people today about Michael Fasusi. To say that Texas is nervous is an understatement right now.
I'm
Like
going
a
to be
severe
quite
understatement.
transparent. I thought today, and I guess I must have had conversations that were similar to yours in nature. I don't imagine they were with the same people, but
They
I gave
definitely were not. I
yeah,
guarantee.
I gave legitimate thought to flipping my prediction from Texas to Oklahoma for Fasusi today. Um,
Yeah,
and like it's kind of astonishing because at some point, I guess I've kind of expected these last few weeks that at some point, it feels like there's going to be an increased confidence from the Texas side. And I guess what's holding me back is that, again, as I said last week, nothing probably happens that is decisive in nature until the final week of the recruitment. And things do have the opportunity to
correct.
change on a dime whenever there's that much money involved. But like, oh, you might land this kid, Brandon. And
Yeah.
I've been holding out on this for a long time. Like I've been unwilling to believe that this could actually come to fruition, but I think it could.
So him and Lamont Rogers have the same trainer.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to somebody today that told me that there were people around Rogers that felt it was Missouri for like the last month and a half. The weird part is that this person also did not know that Rogers called me on June 25th out of the blue, just a random call, and said, "Hey, man, I just got off the phone with Coach Bedenbow. I'm going to Oklahoma." So that shows you how much that kid changed his mind. You add to the fact his mom did not want him at Missouri and wanted him closer to home for family reasons. There are reasons why she wanted him close to home, and they're valid reasons, by the way, and it has nothing to do with any disdain towards Missouri. They absolutely love Missouri. It just has to do with logistics and family stuff. But what changed it back to Missouri, from what I was told, is the fact that Rogers started getting an inkling that Fasusi favored Oklahoma over Missouri, and Rogers was never going to Texas. So they both want to be left tackles. That's what I was told. Now, does that mean Pasusi's going to Oklahoma? No. But there's reason to believe that Oklahoma's in a much better spot. And we've talked about this for a while. We've talked about how good people feel in Norman, and we've talked about why they feel good. But this was a different type of discussion I had. And I left and I told this person, I said, look, I'll believe that when I see it, and that's fine. That's great. You're still a month out. And between now and August 22nd, how many times is this thing going to go back and forth? How many times is NIL going to get thrown back and forth? Some of the numbers that and I asked the person, some of the numbers that we've talked about with Texas, not true, but they did say that Texas be willing to get close to that. Now, I talked to somebody else today too. And with Oklahoma wanting to run it like a actual NFL team in a front office, what do you do? What are name 3 positions that you throw hordes of money at, Parker? 3 positions, or
Quarterback,
4 positions. 4 positions.
Quarterback, wide receiver,
Wide
left
receiver
tackle.
wasn't one of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was going to say quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle.
I was just going to say defensive line as the 4th, kind of loop it all under
The
one.
edge is why left tackles make so much, is because edge rushers are paid so much and because they're such a big deal as far as getting to the quarterback and causing ruckus. And defensive ends, you have to stop the run to be really good. You don't throw a lot of money at, and I would say second tier wide receiver and cornerback is second tier, right? Or somebody elite at safety, but never a running back. Running backs are probably way down the list as far as pay, because most people feel that you can get a good running back. But that's my point. If you're going to do that, you've got to throw money at this. And I think Pasusi's well aware that Texas and Oklahoma are going to battle this thing out. And if you're Oklahoma, at what point, Parker, what point does a black eye become on you if you go 0 for 4?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the reason why I got so close so many times to flipping my prediction on Lamont Rogers, and I've gotten close now on a couple occasions to flipping my pick on Fasusi. And what always holds me back is the realization that it just really doesn't, like, nothing in the recruitment truly matters until the final week, because the final week is when this recruitment will be decided. When the final NIL offers hit the table, the kid's going to have a decision to make as to whether there is a bid that he can't turn down, or whether he's willing to take a bit of a lesser price to prioritize relationships and opportunity for development, or if there's a best of both worlds scenario where the school that he likes the best developmentally and relationally is also the school that has the best NIL offer. So because we're dealing with elite left tackles, again, the whole Fasusi thing, probably there probably won't be a lot of substantial, tangible change there until the final week. We are in the final week with Floyd Boucard, Brandon.
Yeah. Hey, before you do that, real quick, I want to interject. Have you read the chat, or have you looked at the chat at all?
What are we looking at?
So there's a comment on there. There's 2 comments. I wanted to, and I want you to help me out here. Sooner Cowboy says, so if you don't land Fasusi, maybe Beanbo tries to flip Rogers.
That may happen.
Brand DZ7 says Sooners don't have the money to flip Rogers. Well, that's where you're wrong, Brand DZ7. It's that they weren't willing to pay At this juncture, when you have Babalola and Fasusi still in play, why are you going to pay outlandish money when you can grab all of it in one lump sum and throw it at one of those two? And that's not to say Rogers doesn't deserve the money, but you still have options. That's why
Mm-hmm.
when there's still options out on the table, you lose bargaining power. Missouri was going to go over if they didn't go pay for Rogers. That's the reality of it. Oklahoma still has chips on the table. That is why. Now, if Oklahoma loses out and they want to go flip Rogers, Rogers has not closed it completely down. That's the other thing. Mama wants him close to home. They still have some sway. Now, do I think they flip him? Probably not. But will they try? Do they have the money to do it? Absolutely. They could if they want to. But again, how does Oklahoma operate in comparison? It's not do they have it or do they not have it? It's are they willing to do it? Completely different answers, especially when you can grab a transfer that you may feel can be coming and be ready. Because Rogers is raw. He's going to need some work. He has the highest ceiling out of all of them, but he still needs a lot of work. Now, back to Boucard.
He commits Saturday. We are in the final days. And I think what has people apprehensive is that he did an exclusive interview with Mike Steele and I this afternoon on KREF Radio. And if that alone doesn't tell you, and I will say this, I did not solicit that interview with Floyd Boucard. He reached out to me and said, I would like to be on KREF. So if that alone doesn't leave you reason to feel good, I think some of our reporting over the last few days on OUinsider.com, confirmed by a lot of predictions from others in the industry tonight, leads you to believe that OU's in the best spot. But what has left people apprehensive is I asked Floyd point blank earlier today, hey, when you commit on Saturday, are you done with the recruiting process? And his answer was no. He said, no, I'm going to keep my options open. I'm going to keep listening. I'm not done on July 20th. And so that
Do you buy
understandably,
that? I thought that
that
was
under,
interesting.
yeah, look, just because you're listening doesn't mean you're taking action. And there's no harm in listening. Right. Brent Venables and that Oklahoma staff
Yeah.
are not going to hold it against you if you're keeping up text conversations or answering phone calls from other coaching staffs. If you go and show up on another campus, then we know what kind of action they're going to take. But if that doesn't happen, Brandon, if Floyd Boucard
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go take a visit somewhere, it's all for naught. There's not a school that's going to flip Floyd Boucard without getting him back on campus if indeed he commits to Oklahoma. So he's going to have to put the visit policy to the test if Oklahoma's not going to land his pledge. And I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, he's 100% locked in. If he chooses Oklahoma, he's not going to go take other visits at any point. He very well may. And at that point, it's open season again. But I I tend to think that with the way this Oklahoma staff has laid strong relational groundwork for Boucard, it's going to be very, very difficult. Should he pick Oklahoma on Saturday? At any point down the line, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to make that phone call to Todd Bates and say, I'm going to go visit another school this weekend, let alone, hey, sorry, I'm flipping to XYZ other program. That's going to be a really hard conversation for that kid to have if it's Oklahoma this Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it, but still, I, I know we're not going to throw in a pick,
Yeah, no,
and I know there are picks out there. We threw out our hint on OU Insider earlier today. Leave it at that. Um, feels like Oklahoma has a pretty decent chance. but Saturday's not here yet. And you can feel good about it on Wednesday. Thursday can change, Friday can change that answer, and Saturday can change whatever happened the previous 3 days prior to that. So, um, welcome to the NIL world.
Mm-hmm.
That said, Todd Bates, in Todd Bates, you have to trust, and you just leave it at that, right?
100%.
So,
And here's what's worth remembering too. And I don't know that we have discussed this enough as a key factor in the Boucard recruitment. If you recall, Oklahoma was his first big time offer
yeah,
long before Alabama and Miami and Georgia and Penn State and USC and Oregon, et cetera, et cetera. All long before those schools came knocking, Todd Bates watched Floyd Boucard's film and said, "Yep, I want that guy." And it was a big topic of discussion at the time. This goes back to February, maybe even January. There were folks on our board at OUinsider.com going, why would Todd Bates offer some random 3-star and his best offers outside of OU are Louisville and Boston College? Is this really the type of player that we're prioritizing? All the evidence you need in the 6 months since, that is
yeah,
all the evidence you need that Todd Bates is really freaking good at his job. Because look at Floyd Boucard now.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, he knows how to eval. It's for dang sure. That dude went down there and freaking won the Under Armour All American MVP. He's pretty good. Todd Bates knows what he's doing. There's a reason why he's so sought after all the time. There's a reason why OU's paying him what they're paying him. Just stick around.
Yeah, and
So,
can we put to death the
like,
notion that this Oklahoma staff offers scrubs? Because again, you look at the 3-stars in this class. Those 3-stars are still really, really good football players. Guys that you would expect are going to get to the collegiate level and have successful careers. It won't happen in all of their cases. Not everybody in a given recruiting class is going to be a smash hit at the next level. But when you see Todd Bates or any other member of Oklahoma's staff offer a 3-star or a 0-star, even a guy that's yet to receive a rating, can we stop with the whole, why would they offer this kid type of reaction? They offered him because A, they're really good at their jobs. They know what they're looking for. They know what they're looking at. And B, they've made the decision that that kid is good enough to play high level football at the University of Oklahoma.
yeah. Elijah Dukes, 4.99. Thank you for the super chat. Get some aloe vera for Drumm. Parker, can you vouch that I'm not burnt for everybody and that it's lighting,
He's
please?
not burnt. It's just the lighting. And he's Native American. So
It sucks. It sucks. I can't stand it. So, um, is what it is. I want to pull up a photo so everybody can see. Like, I'm freaking dark as crap. I don't know what the heck this lighting is doing, but it is what it is. So, all right.
somebody asked,
What?
there was a listener that asked when Kade Pejac is committing. I don't know. No one knows. What's that?
Yeah, that's the question of the summer, right? Like that dude, I that's one of the weirdest recruitments, and not from like a standpoint of just being crazy, like changing of picks and changing of decisions or anything like that. Just because that dude, I don't even know, man. Like nobody can talk to him, and he goes silent, and people feel like he's going to Oklahoma, right? But what the hell? Like, what's the holdup?
I don't know.
Are you?
I I'm not sure. I'm not sure anyone is sure. But all I have to go off is the most recent word I've gotten from the OU side, which is that they still fully expect him in the class and that he's going to be the final piece of the puzzle at defensive end for Oklahoma. It's just a matter of when that becomes official. And again, it's really tough to discern why there hasn't been an announcement yet when the kid and the kid's entire circle won't say a word to anybody. So it's just a waiting game that we're
Yeah.
all going to have to play
I,
together.
I I don't. It is a horrible, horrible waiting game. But I think so. If Oklahoma closes with Pejac, let's say they close with Pejac, Fasusi, Boucard, do you think they're done with 25? Or do you think they try to still go get a linebacker?
They still go get a linebacker. I think they'll continue pushing for Christian Jones. I mean, that would be the final defensive piece of the puzzle if they get Boucard and Pejac.
I mean, what do you how long do you think this Christian Jones thing drags out?
I don't think it'll be terribly like his original plan was not to commit until after his senior season in November/December. He's already moved the timeline up. He was saying late August, early September when we talked to the Rivals 5-star. So
Mhm.
I think he's starting to get to the point where he realizes I know what I like. I know who I love. I know who loves me. I have three schools right now: Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Auburn, that I feel comfortable at, and it comes down to deciding between those three.
Yeah.
And Miami's involved, I guess, but they've already got three linebackers committed. I don't really imagine that they will push all that hard for a fourth. And so if it comes down to Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Auburn, and I've said this before, like I threw that future casting for Christian Jones, and I feel good about it. The one thing that could wreak havoc on those plans is if Nebraska goes and wins a few games this fall. If they go 8-4, 9-3, that might be good enough to where Christian Jones has enough people around him, and Nebraska has done a really, really good job recruiting in state and making sure they lock down the local radius. That he may have enough influences around him amongst his peers in his ear about the black shirts that it'll make sense in his mind to stay home. And so the issue is, as I look at Nebraska's schedule, I can't help but wonder how many wins are there on that schedule. It's always tough to gauge with that program, especially because they have not lived up to expectations in years, Brandon, because it seems like every single
Mhm.
offseason, the narrative is, oh, Nebraska's going to turn it around. They'll be improved. They're not going to be elite necessarily this season, but this coming year, there'll be a drastic improvement for the Huskers, and it just never comes. And so, will it come in 2024? Maybe. I think a lot of that's on the shoulders of Dylan Raiola at the quarterback position. But if
Right.
Nebraska goes 5-7 again, Christian Jones isn't going to Nebraska.
Yeah. I mean, what if they go 7-5?
Yeah, it depends. Is it an ugly seven and
Legacy
five or a pretty
legacy
seven and
falls
five?
for it, maybe. Yeah. Goes all in. I think Matt Rule is going to fix that issue there in Nebraska. I've felt that way since he got hired. That's what he does. If you give him time, he will fix your college football program.
Yeah,
Not
well, and the best thing
NFL,
he's done,
but
like the
but
thing that he's done that is it going to enable him to have success in Nebraska is he's not trying to make Nebraska something that it isn't. He's doing exactly what has worked for Nebraska football in the previous decades when they had some of their great teams. They're not trying to go recruit heavily in California and Florida, and they're not trying to go toe to
well, that's
toe.
why Osborne was really good because he recruited in Florida and California. He made a
Now,
home in
now,
those
no,
two
no,
states.
no, listen, that is true. That is true. They would pull kids out of those regions from time to
In New
time,
Jersey.
but especially at the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
especially at the line of scrimmage, the crux of those great Nebraska teams, those were guys that came from that 250-mile radius around Lincoln, Nebraska. And Matt Rule has done a great job of making sure that nobody falls through the cracks for that staff that is
Yeah.
within state lines or just outside of state lines. They've had some big recruiting wins up in South Dakota. They've had big recruiting wins across the river in Iowa with a guy like Grant Bricks down in Kansas. They're starting to make inroads into the Kansas City metro.
Yeah. that's trouble for Missouri and Oklahoma and Kansas State if they become any bit of a formidable opponent and win more often than not, right? Like, because Kansas City used to be just a breeding ground for Nebraska football back in the
And
day.
you know who else is going to have a big presence in Kansas City in the years to come? No doubt about it, is Dan Lanning.
Yes.
Oregon's going to be a big player there.
I don't know. Is Jamar Mosey gonna allow Nebraska to get even further into Kansas City with that hire?
That is a big hire if what you want to do is build strong relationships in the KC
Mm-hmm.
Metro, because Jamar is very, very well respected in those circles. I mean, he's the epitome of a relationship guy, players coach. Like, if he's at Nebraska for the long haul, he was at UCF for what, like 3, 4 months, and I didn't figure he was ever going to be there for all that long. But if he's at Nebraska in the long haul, that will enhance the Huskers' ability to go into Kansas City and make some noise on the recruiting trail, because everybody in that vicinity knows who Jamar Mosey is.
Mm-hmm. All right, Parker. That ought to do it, right? For this live. Oklahoma is in the SEC. If you didn't believe it, I have to tell you that for those that don't know, that media day is far superior to the Big 12. Like it is a show. There are so many things going on, so many people live there. Remember that it used to be ESPN that was live there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it, right? At the Big 12. Yes, you have ESPN there, but you've got the SEC network. You've got all sorts of just the the radio row is so massive at SEC. It's a maze. It is, and it's the all you can eat buffet constantly that they throw at you. Just I loved it. I am so happy that we get to cover a team that's in the SEC now. After hating on the SEC for years, I retract all negative things that I've said about that conference.
Did you hate on the SEC? Were you an SEC hater?
I was a big AC. Dude, I lived in Arkansas for 5 years. It's where I met my wife. And I could not stand that fan base whenever I was living down there because, and this is before I got in the media, no matter what, Oklahoma could go in and just kill everybody. And they wouldn't do that in the SEC. I'm like, man. And of course, they lost to Florida that year, but they lost to Florida without DeMarco Murray. Now, I want everybody to understand that DeMarco Murray still, I will go to my grave. 2,700 all-purpose yards. I think 20 plus touchdowns that weren't on the field
Mm-hmm.
during that time. 600 plus receiving yards. Like that was a big loss for Oklahoma. No matter how anybody wants to slice it, they're not getting stuffed inside the 5 3 times in that game, and they're probably up 28-7 or whatever it was at halftime if DeMarco Murray, and that's what this should have been up, or 35, whatever. I don't know. It should have been really bad. I'll never forget Parker going into the bathroom at halftime and the Florida fans walking in there going, dude, we're so lucky. We should be down by like 5 touchdowns right now. And they ended up winning the ball game because of what they did in the first half. So
Gosh, man, that's so long ago.
I
It
know
just
I'm
hit
bringing
me
up
how long ago that
PTSD
is.
for all
Like
these
that's
people.
it's been 15 years since I watched Oklahoma play for a national championship. 15 years. Wow.
15 years. That is more than half your life.
Yes.
I can't say that. Oh, I will say that it was like that for me until 2000. So almost my whole I OU didn't win a national, or they didn't play for a national title for 13 years, I believe. They played in 87. So 13 years of the first 17 years of my life, 13 of it they didn't play for a national title. They played in it the first 4 years that I was alive and then didn't play for it for 13 straight seasons. So um Maybe they're going to get back on track. Yeah. That'd be great for our business. I can tell you that much. Oh, I'd be happy man. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. If you're not a member of OU Insider, $9.95. We'll get you a whole month. We'll get you for the first few weeks of fall camp, leading right up to the first game of the season versus Temple on August 30th. Give us a try. We're going to have tons of information. I got team notes I'm going to be dropping here this week. I've started it, working on it right now. Notes, quotes, source notes, quotes from SEC Media Day, all sorts of stuff that are going on in that little piece that I'm going to have for you guys on OU Insider. We're going to have the Floyd Boucard announcement covered. We're going to have the Fasusi stuff covered. We're going to have Christian Jones. We're going to have Kade Pejac. All that's going to be covered on OU Insider. Plus, guess what? At the end of this month, Sooners Under the Stars and Party at the Palace will be taking place. And that means all the top 25, 26, 27, 28 kids will all be colliding in Norman over a 48, 72-hour period at the last weekend of July. And we're going to have that covered for you. We're going to have a list that's going to be going up for you guys. Lots of information, lots of big-time players, lots of where Oklahoma stands with the next batch as Jaden O'Neal shows back up at the end of this month and tries to start recruiting for 2026 and building a class around the Rivals top 50 player. I think eventually he's top 65 right now, but soon to be top 50 player, I would assume, in the country, one of the top quarterbacks in the country in the 2026 class that is committed to Oklahoma. We're going to have all that for you on OU Insider VIP. Plus, Fan Day is coming up, right? Meet the Players is coming up at the beginning of August. Fall camp starting up at the beginning of August, and we're going to have every practice covered for you. We're going to get observation, right? You guys, if you're on OU Insider VIP, we'll get live updates when we get to go do that of what's going on in practice, how that's going. All of that will be right there on OU Insider VIP. So $9.95 a month, $99.95 will get you covered for the whole year. That means everything that we do is covered for you all through the first season of the SEC. And not just football, but basketball, baseball, softball. All of it will be covered for you right now if you sign up for $99.95. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Everything, all the podcasts, everything is going to be right here on OU Insider VIP or OU Insider YouTube, excuse me. So subscribe, click that like, click that notification button. Make sure you're ready for everything that we drop, because daily videos of all OU athletics and recruiting right here on this channel. All right, for Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed night.